Welcome to Euronews Tonight. Here are the headlines. President Zelensky says Moscow faces strategic defeat in Ukraine as Russian forces appear to lose territory on several fronts in the east of the country. The first alleged war crime case begins in Ukraine as a Russian commander appears in court accused of killing a Ukrainian civilian. Stormont stalemate. What now for Northern Ireland as the Democratic Unionist Party blocks the election of a speaker, meaning the Assembly can't sit? And chaotic scenes in East Jerusalem as Israeli Defense Forces attack mourners at the funeral of Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh. Hello and welcome to the programme. The Ukrainian army says it's gaining back territory in the east with reports from the front line of decisive victories against Russian forces. Kyiv says it's retaken villages close to Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv. It also reports wiping out an entire Russian battalion in the Donbass as Russian troops attempted a crossing of the Seversky Donets River. President Zelensky says Moscow has embarrassed itself on the world stage and has already suffered a strategic defeat in the war.
Russia's strategic defeat is already obvious to everyone in the world, and even to those who still continue to communicate with it. Russia simply lacks courage to admit it so far. They are cowards, and they are trying to hide the truth behind missiles, air and artillery strikes. Therefore, our task is to fight until we achieve our goals in this war. Free our land, our people, and reliably ensure our security.
Following these events is our correspondent Sasha Vakolina. She joins me now. Sasha, Ukrainian troops appear to be inflicting heavy losses on Russian forces in the east of the country. What more can you tell us?
Well, let's start with the situation around Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city. Here, the Institute for the Study of War compared the situation to the one that we saw by the end of March around Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. They said that Kharkiv is starting to look very similar to the counteroffensive that ultimately drove Russian troops away from Kyiv. The UK Defense Ministry also said that they pulled back from Kharkiv, but when they're being pulled back from Kharkiv, they're being sent towards the east, and we're exactly to all that front line in the east with heavy fighting where it continues now for weeks, Paul. Russian forces may be abandoning efforts at wide encirclement of Ukrainian troops along the Izum-Slovyansk-Debaltseve line, because this is what they have been trying to do for weeks, but they could not succeed in that. Instead, they might be focusing in a shallower encirclement with smaller towns and Ukrainian forces there. But in order to do so, Russian troops, they had made 3 unsuccessful attempts to build those bridges that did not work. And according to the governor of Luhansk region, Ukrainian defenders beat back the Russians each time. Russia has not commented on anything that happened across that bridge on Seversky Donets, but we do know that, according to the latest data by UK Defense Intelligence, Russian battalion lost almost all of its armored vehicles in the attempts to cross that river in eastern Ukraine.
And there's been more heavy fighting in and around Snake Island in the Black Sea. Why is that so strategically important for Russia?
Now, Snake Island is indeed a very small island that is located around 35 kilometers from the coast of Odessa and about 45 kilometers from the coast of NATO, from Romania, in the Black Sea. This is the island that Russia took and occupied on the first day of the war. You might remember that epic accident and what happened there at the Snake Island. What's been happening ever since that Russia is trying to strengthen its force and to build up their forces. Why? Because they are trying to set up there the long-range air defense and resupply vessels. That would give Russia the control of the sea, land and air in the northwestern part of the Black Sea, and will also give them the possibility to attack and to shell the southern regions of Ukraine, including Odessa. What happened on Thursday is Russian Navy logistics vessel caught fire. Odessa Regional Military Administration said it was damaged by Ukrainian military. Russia has not commented on that yet. And also satellite footage by Maxar Technologies emerged showing Russian military ship that has sunk near the Snake Island, which was seized by Russia, of course, as we said, from the very, very early days of this war. Taking control of the Snake Island would give Russia so much control over that part of the Black Sea and also the possibility to shell the southern regions of Ukraine.
OK, Sasha, thank you so much for that update. Let's cross over to Ukraine's southern region of Odessa to our international correspondent, Annalise Borges. Annalise, we've just been talking about the battle for Snake Island with Sasha. It's an important target when it comes to control of the south, where you are. We hear there's been heavy bombardment.
Indeed, we went to the site of one of those attacks today in the city of Mykolaiv, where a residential area was hit. Actually, several residential areas in the city of Mykolaiv were hit over the last 24 hours. There's been a spike in shelling in that region. Mykolaiv, which is a port city, a very important coordination hub for Ukraine's war efforts here in the south of the country. There, civilian targets have been hit multiple times, including the headquarters of the regional government's administrations, where 36 people were killed back in March. Over the last 24 hours, once again, the shelling has intensified in that area. And we understand that Ukrainian soldiers to the east of Mykolaiv, east and south, that are trying to retake control of the city of Kherson, have been struggling. They have been able to maintain their positions, but they're not exactly making progress. And according to the governor of the province, that is because they are waiting for the gains made in the north and in the east of the country to be secured, to be consolidated, so that they can move forward and advance towards the east.
And President Zelensky has repeated his offer to sit down with President Putin to broker a peace deal. You've been speaking to Ukrainian troops. How do they see how the battle's going, and are they ready to make peace?
Well, the soldiers have been meeting here in Ukraine over the last almost 90 days now, say that they are, well, they're quite candid about just how much resentment they feel towards Russia. Most of them have had their lives upended. Many families have fled here. Some have lost loved ones, and they are quite adamant that this is a war about survival of themselves, but also of their country. One soldier told me yesterday, for example, that Russia no longer had the right to exist as a country, and that gives you an idea of just how much anger there is. Many of them do respect President Volodymyr Zelensky, and one would think that they would accept whatever decision is made to bring this war to a halt. However, many believe that the matters now should be settled in the battlefield, and President Zelensky knows that. He has repeatedly said that he's open to negotiate with Vladimir Putin, but whatever deal may be struck with Russia, well, the conditions of that deal will be put on a referendum so that Ukrainians vote and decide just how much they're willing to compromise for peace.
OK, Annalise, thank you for that, and stay safe. Sweden is expected to follow its neighbour Finland and announce its intention to push for NATO membership without delay as the war in Ukraine enters its 12th week. It comes as the EU pledged another €500 million to Kyiv, and as the US Senate looks set to approve another aid package. For more on this, let's speak to John Herbst, former US ambassador to Ukraine and currently senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Centre. Ambassador, thank you very much for speaking to us. My first question is, Russia seems very determined to cut Ukraine off from the Black Sea and take Odessa. How concerned are you that Odessa could fall?
Well, we should be very concerned. If Odessa falls to the Russians, that's basically a 20 or 25% permanent hit to the economy of Ukraine. We need to get to Ukraine the advanced anti-ship missiles that should have been delivered in February to make sure that Russia's Navy is taken out of the fight for Odessa. And I think if we do that, there's a very good chance that the city will be held by the Ukrainians.
Earlier this week, the US intelligence warned that the war in Ukraine is becoming increasingly attritional. In your view, is enough being done to help the Ukrainians?
The short answer is no. The longer answer is the Biden administration is now talking about a $40 billion aid package, which is a very good step. But the administration is still too timid in sending and encouraging our allies to send the advanced weapons Ukraine needs. I referred to the anti-ship missiles. You could also talk about us sending more high-altitude anti-aircraft systems like the S-300. The administration has made a major mistake in not agreeing to the transfer of MiGs and Sukhoi bombers to Ukraine. They need to reverse that. We need to send more what we call long-term fires. That can be multiple rocket launches, which have a range of 100 or more miles. We're not doing that. All these things Ukraine needs desperately, and it's in our interest to give it to Ukraine so they can stop the Russians.
And if the West did that, could Ukraine win?
Absolutely. They've fought the Russians to a standstill while we've provided significant arms. We haven't provided all the arms Ukraine needs. If we give them everything, I have no doubt they can push the Russians back from the territory they've seized since they launched this huge invasion at the end of February.
Doesn't all this, though, risk a retaliatory response from Russia? I'd like to touch just on Finland. I mean, Russia has said it'll take retaliatory steps there if Finland joins NATO. So is there a real risk here of escalating things?
Look, you cannot exclude this. We have to take into account that Russia has nuclear weapons. It's also true that Finland and Sweden have been neutral nations for decades. And only now do they want to join NATO because they see Russia's foreign policy as very dangerous. It's also true that Ukraine was neutral before Russia invaded in 2014. Only then did Ukraine begin to talk about joining NATO in a serious way. So Putin is creating his own problems by invading his neighbors and committing massive war crimes, I might add, in Ukraine.
But doesn't it fit into the Russian narrative that NATO is the aggressor by incorporating Finland and Sweden? How do you give President Putin an off-ramp?
I think we've spent 8 years trying to give him an off-ramp. If he wants to stop committing a war of aggression against Ukraine, he can do it in a New York minute. He doesn't want to because he wants to subjugate Ukraine. And his objectives, the stated objectives of his policy, is to establish similar influence in the Baltic states, our NATO allies. We have no choice but to stop Putin, and the smart place is to stop in Ukraine. Putin understands strength. When we worry, when our leaders say, oh, we can't do X because it might annoy Putin or provoke Putin, we are inviting him to commit further aggression. The Turks shot down his planes which were flying in their airspace in 2015, and Putin didn't say boo until the Turks took credit for it. And even then, he did almost nothing.
OK, John Herbst, former US ambassador to Ukraine and senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Centre. Many thanks for your time. Still to come, what's happening at Twitter after Tesla's Elon Musk announces his deal to take over the social media giant is temporarily on hold. Welcome back to the programme. Now, the DUP has been strongly condemned for its refusal to form a government in Northern Ireland as it falls deeper into political crisis. The Nationalist Party, Sinn Féin, who emerged as the largest party in last week's elections, accused the Unionists of paralysing Stormont in failing to nominate a speaker. But the DUP says it will not budge due to its concerns over the Northern Ireland Protocol, which leader Jeffrey Donaldson says poses a direct challenge to Northern Ireland. Newly elected members were supposed to meet on Friday for the inaugural day of the Assembly. For more on this, we're joined from London by our reporter, Vincent McAviney. Thanks for being with us, Vincent. This latest move by the DUP clearly raises the stakes over the future of the Northern Ireland Protocol. Is there any way out, in your opinion, of this current impasse?
Yeah, it did do. There was a bit of surprise that they wouldn't even allow for the election of a speaker. They'd already signalled that they wouldn't allow the formation of an executive over the protocol. And there is a lot of anger in Northern Ireland, not just from politicians, but from the general public about this, because once again, their assembly is not able to sit. Over the past 2 decades or so that it has been around, there have been many occasions, once as long as 3 years, where power sharing broke down and you had to have rule from Westminster. So people are angry that once again the politicians cannot get around the table. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has announced that he will be travelling to Northern Ireland on Monday for talks on this. But at the moment, the UK has said already this week that it's taken independent legal advice that it might unilaterally try to override some of the Northern Ireland Protocol in the Brexit deal. But the EU at the moment still holding firm, despite calls from the UK to be more flexible on the negotiations. At the moment, the EU position still seems to be that this is what was agreed and this is what you signed up for. You knew that putting a border, effectively a customs border in the Irish Sea, would have an impact on the unionist community, and that this is what you agreed to.
And how have Northern Ireland's other political parties reacted to the DUP's refusal to nominate a speaker? And is there any faith in that Westminster can broker a solution?
Well, there is a lot of anger across the political spectrum in Northern Ireland in the other parties at the fact that the DUP has decided to do this. It is anti-democratic. It comes just a week after a free and fair election. And there's also a little bit of suspicion amongst the public and some in the Catholic community and the parties that are aligned with the Republican sentiment in the DUP, because they never expected to lose control. For the last 2 decades, they've been the dominant party in the power sharing, the way it's set up. They have been the First Minister, and Sinn Féin has held the position of Deputy First Minister. But for now, this has finally flipped, and there is some suspicion that it's the fact that they cannot simply handle the fact that they are not in full power anymore, that they've only been paying lip service to power sharing, and that they're just simply not happy to take on that position of deputy leader, because the action they've taken today prevents Sinn Féin from taking over that First Minister position. So there is that suspicion there. In terms of hopes for how this can be resolved, well, a sign of how dire it's viewed across the Atlantic in the White House is a delegation now from the US Congress is coming, a high-profile delegation to the UK and to Northern Ireland in the next few days to try and have talks to resolve this, because there's genuine concern that any kind of disruption carrying on where there isn't power sharing going on with the Brexit protocol, there are angry discussions with the EU, that this could really heighten tensions. This is still a post-conflict society, a deeply divided society, and there had been, before Brexit, a lot of attempts to try and heal the cross-border wounds. Brexit has opened some of them up once again. You're moving into a sensitive time in the calendar as well. The summer, you see the marching season, the bonfire season in the Protestant community. And so there's real concern that this could be another blow to the peace process.
Vincent, thank you. There were chaotic scenes in East Jerusalem as mourners carrying the coffin of Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh were attacked by Israeli defense forces. Authorities say its forces were acting against people they claim were disrupting public order. Soldiers could be seen removing Palestinian flags from the coffin. Tensions have been high since the veteran reporter was shot dead on Wednesday while reporting on a raid in Jenin in the occupied West Bank. The Qatar-based media outlet Al Jazeera, as well as the Palestinian Authority, have accused the IDF of assassinating Abu Akleh in cold blood. Israel says the circumstances of her death have yet to be determined. Following the chaotic scenes, Shireen Abu Akleh's coffin continued its journey to Mount Zion Cemetery in Jerusalem, where she was laid to rest next to her parents. Her family and friends gathered to pay respect to the Palestinian journalist who has been covering the region for over 2 decades. The UN, EU and US have all called for an investigation into the causes of her killing. Elon Musk's bid to buy Twitter has been temporarily placed on ice due to concerns over fake Twitter accounts inflating member numbers. Catherine Beer-Jurkan reports.
After weeks of controversy, Elon Musk has announced that his deal to purchase Twitter is temporarily on hold. The richest man in the world originally planned to buy the social media platform for 42 billion euros. Musk announced the hold on Twitter, and he added that the pause was to verify spam and fake accounts make up less than 5% of Twitter's users, a figure produced by Twitter earlier this month. The hold caused shares for the company to plummet by around 17% in pre-market trading. Musk has previously said that he wanted to turn Twitter into a haven for free speech, and that he planned to remove its spam bots if he bought the platform. Catherine Berjikian, Euronews.
Who will win? Who should win? It's the final of the Eurovision Song Contest this weekend. Much more in just a moment. A very warm welcome back to the programme. Now, Turin will play host to the grand final of the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday night. One of the hot favourites is Ukraine's Kalush Orchestra. Stefania De Michele asked the band how important it is to represent their country when there's a war going on.
I will always find my way home, even if all roads are destroyed, they sang on stage. In order to perform in Turin and to leave Ukraine, the Kalush Orchestra got a special permission, but it wasn't a choice that everyone made. A member of the band decided to stay in Ukraine to fight. Let's meet the Kalush Orchestra representing a country at war here in Turin at the Eurovision Song Contest.
It is a very important moment for us because as we are qualifying here to the final, Ukrainian culture is at risk. It is being killed, destroyed in our homeland. But we're here to say that it's alive. It's unique.
How does it feel to perform here in Turin in a happy atmosphere while in Ukraine people are fighting?
There are multiple air raid alerts every day in the region where my family and my friends are. There are rockets flying over our houses. It really is like a lottery. You never know when your house will be hit by a rocket. So, of course, it's very stressful. But we are here and we are very focused on rehearsals and preparations right now. We are focused on conveying our message about the uniqueness and beauty of Ukrainian culture.
Bookmakers say you are the favorites. If you win next year, Ukraine will host the next edition. Can you imagine it?
We hope that if Ukraine hosts Eurovision next year, it will be a united, rebuilt and peaceful Ukraine.
Can you share with us a few seconds of your song, Stefania?
Мене в сильній бурі забере бабулі двідулі. Ніби вони кулі, дуже добре знала мене, не була обманута, як було дуже втомлена, гойдала мене в такт.
Stefania De Michele, Kalush Orchestra, Euronews, Turin.
That's all from me and the team for the moment. We'll be back shortly with the top stories.